Hey, what's up everybody? It's Frank again, doing one last video for the Design a Comic Book Learning Path on lynda.com. Again, you can find Lynda on the library website, library.nashville.org. There you can log on to Lynda using your library card number and your PIN. This final course, called Digital Inking and Refinement, is mostly technical instruction about setting all this up in Photoshop. So I skipped down to section 4 where it gets into the actual visual details of what you can do if, like me, you're following along using pencil and paper. And in the video initial line work, he talks about going over this rough layer that we have in pencils. He talks about choosing the right lines to go over with ink. So not committing to all of the lines that you made with pencil, but figuring out which ones you want to keep in your final page. And then he emphasizes here that you need to start out with thin lines only, because you can always thicken them up later. Which brings us to the next video, line weight, where he talks about thickening up the lines that are closest to us in order to make the figures in the foreground pop out. And you can see through his example, and also in mine here, where thickening up some of the lines in the foreground really makes that space more believable. Then he talks about in the next video, positive and negative space, using value to create space, and emphasizing the most important information in the frame, which would be usually in the foreground. So he's creating some darker values in the background to kind of have this illusion of lighting in the foreground. He then talks about halos and highlights, adding a halo or thin white line to make a subject stand out from a dark background. I do this some. I don't use as much value variation, as much gray as he does, but on the frames where I make the background black, I do a little halo like he teaches how to do. In the last video, he talks about a blur effect, which is a pretty cool effect on Photoshop to establish camera-like focus by blurring out a subject in space. However, we're not using Photoshop, so it's not very relevant to what we're doing. And then, in the last section, there's a video about inking on top of a pencil rough, digital inking, where he used real pencils and then worked with the scan in Photoshop. And all of the Photoshop stuff is pretty informative and really valuable if you have access to that. So I would encourage you to watch the whole thing if you're looking to do some of this on the computer. However, just as that fourth section would be most important in doing a traditional style. And here is my finished product. I do some of the things he talks about, such as darkening up lines in the foreground, and I use some halos, and yeah, that's it.